Section 62 of the Book of Household Management. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Leanne Howlett. The Book of Household Management by Isabella Beeton. Recipes, Chapter 27, Part 4. Half-pay pudding. 1286. Ingredients: 1/4 pound of suet, 1/4 pound of currants, 1/4 pound of raisins, 1/4 pound of flour, 1/4 pound of breadcrumbs, 2 tablespoonfuls of treacle, 1/2 pint of milk. Mode: chop the suet finely, mix with it the currants, which should be nicely washed and dried, the raisins, which should be stoned, the flour, breadcrumbs, and treacle. Moisten with the milk, beat up the ingredients until all are thoroughly mixed, put them into a buttered basin, and boil the pudding for 3 1/2 hours. Time, 3 1/2 hours. Average cost, 8d. Sufficient for 5 or 6 persons. Seasonable at any time. Herodotus pudding. 1287. Ingredients: 1/2 pound of breadcrumbs, 1/2 pound of good figs, 6 ounces of suet, 6 ounces of moist sugar, 1/2 saltspoonful of salt, 3 eggs, nutmeg to taste. Mode: mince the suet and figs very finely. Add the remaining ingredients, taking care that the eggs are well whisked. Beat the mixture for a few minutes, put it into a buttered mold, tie it down with a floured cloth, and boil the pudding for 5 hours. Serve with wine sauce. Time, 5 hours. Average cost, 10d. Sufficient for 5 or 6 persons. Seasonable at any time. Hunter's pudding. 1288. Ingredients: 1 pound of raisins, 1 pound of currants, 1 pound of suet, 1 pound of breadcrumbs, 3 pounds of moist sugar, 8 eggs, 1 tablespoonful of flour, 3 pounds of mixed candied peel, 1 glass of brandy, 10 drops of essence of lemon, 10 drops of essence of almonds, 1/2 nutmeg, 2 blades of mace, 6 cloves. Mode: stone and shred the raisins rather small, chop the suet finely, and rub the bread until all lumps are well broken. Pound the spice to powder, cut the candied peel into thin shreds, and mix all these ingredients well together, adding the sugar. Beat the eggs to a strong froth, and as they are beaten, drop into them the essence of lemon and essence of almonds. Stir these to the dry ingredients, mix well, and add the brandy. Tie the pudding firmly in a cloth, and boil it for 6 hours at the least. 7 or 8 hours would be still better for it. Serve with boiled custard, or red currant jelly, or brandy sauce. Time, 6 to 8 hours. Average cost, 3s. 6d. Sufficient for 9 or 10 persons. Seasonable in winter. Iced pudding. Parisian recipe. 1289. Ingredients: 1/2 pound of sweet almonds, 2 ounces of bitter ones, 3/4 pound of sugar, 8 eggs, 1 1/2 pints of milk. Mode: blanch and dry the almonds thoroughly in a cloth, then pound them in a mortar until reduced to a smooth paste. Add to these the well-beaten eggs, the sugar and milk. Stir these ingredients over the fire until they thicken, but do not allow them to boil. Then strain and put the mixture into the freezing pot, surround it with ice, and freeze it as directed in Recipe 1290. When quite frozen, fill an iced pudding mold, put on the lid, and keep the pudding in ice until required for table. Then turn it out on the dish, and garnish it with a compote of any fruit that may be preferred, pouring a little over the top of the pudding. This pudding may be flavored with vanilla, cacao, or maraschino. Time, 1/2 hour to freeze the mixture. Seasonable, served all the year round. Iced apple pudding. French recipe after Carême. 1290. Ingredients: 2 dozen apples, a small pot of apricot jam, 1/2 pound of sugar, 1 Seville orange, 1/4 pint of preserved cherries, 1/4 pound of raisins, 1 ounce of citron, 2 ounces of almonds, 1 gill of cacao, 1 gill of maraschino, 1 pint of cream. Mode. Peel, core, and cut the apples into quarters, and simmer them over the fire until soft. Then mix with them the apricot jam and the sugar, on which the rind of the orange should be previously rubbed. Work all these ingredients through a sieve, and put them into the freezing pot. Stone the raisins, and simmer them in a little syrup for a few minutes. Add these, with the sliced citron, the almonds cut in dice, and the cherries drained from their syrup, to the ingredients in the freezing pot. Put in the cacao and maraschino, and freeze again. Add as much whipped cream as will be required, freeze again, and fill the mould. Put the lid on, and plunge the mould into the ice pot. Cover it with a wet cloth and pounded ice and saltpetre, where it should remain until wanted for table. Turn the pudding out of the mould onto a clean and neatly folded napkin, and serve, as sauce, a little iced whipped cream in a sauce tureen or glass dish. Time. 1/2 hour to freeze the mixture. Seasonable from August to March. Method of working the freezing apparatus. Put into the outer pail some pounded ice, upon which strew some saltpetre. Then fix the pewter freezing pot upon this, and surround it entirely with ice and saltpetre. Wipe the cover and edges of the pot, pour in the preparation, and close the lid. A quarter of an hour after, begin turning the freezing pan from right to left, and when the mixture begins to be firm round the sides of the pot, stir it about with a slice or spattle, that the preparation may be equally congealed. Close the lid again, keep working from right to left, and from time to time remove the mixture from the sides, that it may be smooth, and when perfectly frozen, it is ready to put in the mould. The mould should then be placed in the ice again, where it should remain until wanted for table. Roly-poly jam pudding, 1291. Ingredients: 3/4 pound of suet crust, No. 1215, 3/4 pound of any kind of jam. Mode. Make a nice light suet crust by recipe No. 1215, and roll it out to the thickness of about 1/2 inch. Spread the jam equally over it, leaving a small margin of paste without any, where the pudding joins. Roll it up, fasten the ends securely, and tie it in a floured cloth. Put the pudding into boiling water, and boil for 2 hours. Mincemeat or marmalade may be substituted for the jam, and makes excellent puddings. Time. 2 hours. Average cost, 9d. Sufficient for 5 or 6 persons. Seasonable. Suitable for winter puddings, when fresh fruit is not obtainable. Lemon cheesecakes. 1292. Ingredients: 1/4 pound of butter, 1 pound of loaf sugar, 6 eggs, the rind of 2 lemons, and the juice of 3. Mode. Put all the ingredients into a stewpan, carefully grating the lemon rind and straining the juice. Keep stirring the mixture over the fire until the sugar is dissolved and it begins to thicken. When of the consistency of honey, it is done. Then put it into small jars and keep in a dry place. This mixture will remain good 3 or 4 months. When made into cheesecakes, add a few pounded almonds or candied peel or grated sweet biscuit. Line some patty pans with good puff paste, rather more than half fill them with the mixture, and bake for about 1/4 hour in a good brisk oven. Time. 1/4 hour. Average cost, 1s. 4d. Sufficient for 24 cheesecakes. Seasonable at any time. Lemon mincemeat. 1293. Ingredients: 2 large lemons, 6 large apples, 1/2 pound of suet, 1 pound of currants, 1/2 pound of sugar, 2 ounces of candied lemon peel, 1 ounce of citron, mixed spice to taste. Mode. Pare the lemons, squeeze them, and boil the peel until tender enough to mash. Add to the mashed lemon peel the apples, which should be pared, cored, and minced; the chopped suet, currants, sugar, sliced peel, and spice. Strain the lemon juice to these ingredients, stir the mixture well, and put it in a jar with a closely fitting lid. Stir occasionally, and in a week or 10 days the mincemeat will be ready for use. Average cost 2s. Sufficient for 18 large or 24 small pies. Seasonable. Make this about the beginning of December. Lemon dumplings. $12.94. Ingredients: 1/2 pound of grated bread, 1/4 pound of chopped suet, 1/4 pound of moist sugar, 2 eggs, 1 large lemon. Mode: mix the bread, suet, and moist sugar well together, adding the lemon peel, which should be very finely minced. Moisten with the eggs and strained lemon juice. Stir well, and put the mixture into small buttered cups. Tie them down and boil for 3/4 of an hour. Turn them out on a dish, strew sifted sugar over them, and serve with wine sauce. Time. 3/4 of an hour. Average cost 7d. Sufficient for 6 dumplings. Seasonable at any time. Baked lemon pudding. 1. $12.95. Ingredients: the yolks of 4 eggs, 4 ounces of pounded sugar, 1 lemon, 1/4 pound of butter, puff crust. Mode: beat the eggs to a froth, mix with them the sugar and warmed butter. Stir these ingredients well together, putting in the grated rind and strained juice of the lemon peel. Line a shallow dish with puff paste. Put in the mixture and bake in a moderate oven for 40 minutes. Turn the pudding out of the dish, strew over it sifted sugar, and serve. Time. 40 minutes. Average cost 10d. Sufficient for 5 or 6 persons. Seasonable at any time. 2. $12.96. Ingredients: 10 ounces of bread crumbs, 2 pints of milk, 2 ounces of butter, 1 lemon, 1/4 pound of pounded sugar, 4 eggs, 1 tablespoonful of brandy. Mode: bring the milk to the boiling point, stir in the butter, and pour these hot over the bread crumbs. Add the sugar and very finely minced lemon peel. Beat the eggs and stir these in with the brandy to the other ingredients. Put a paste round the dish, and bake for 3/4 of an hour. Time. 3/4 an hour. Average cost 1s. 2d. Sufficient for 6 or 7 persons. Seasonable at any time. Lemon. The lemon is a variety of the citron. The juice of this fruit makes one of our most popular and refreshing beverages, lemonade, which is gently stimulating and cooling, and soon quenches the thirst. It may be freely partaken by bilious and sanguine temperaments, but persons with irritable stomachs should avoid it, on account of its acid qualities. The fresh rind of the lemon is a gentle tonic, and, when dried and grated, is used in flavouring a variety of culinary preparations. Lemons appear in company with the orange in most orange-growing countries. They were only known to the Romans at a very late period, and at first were used only to keep the moths from their garments. Their acidity was unpleasant to them. In the time of Pliny, the lemon was hardly known otherwise than as an excellent counter-poison. 3. Very rich. $12.97. Ingredients: the rind and juice of 2 large lemons, 1/2 pound of loaf sugar, 1/4 pint of cream, the yolks of 8 eggs, 2 ounces of almonds, 1/2 pound of butter, melted. Mode: mix the pounded sugar with the cream, and add the yolks of eggs and the butter, which should be previously warmed. Blanch and pound the almonds, and put these, with the grated rind and strained juice of the lemons, to the other ingredients. Stir all well together, line a dish with puff paste, put in the mixture, and bake for 1 hour. Time. 1 hour. Average cost 2s. Sufficient for 6 or 7 persons. Seasonable at any time. Boiled lemon pudding. $12.98. Ingredients: 1/2 pound of chopped suet, 3/4 pound of bread crumbs, 2 small lemons, 6 ounces of moist sugar, 1/4 pound of flour, 2 eggs, milk. Mode: mix the suet, bread crumbs, sugar, and flour well together, adding the lemon peel, which should be very finely minced, and the juice, which should be strained. When these ingredients are well mixed, moisten with the eggs and sufficient milk to make the pudding of the consistency of thick batter. Put it into a well-buttered mold and boil for 3 1/2 hours. Turn it out, strew sifted sugar over, and serve with wine sauce or not at pleasure. Time, 3 1/2 hours. Average cost, 1s. Sufficient for 7 or 8 persons. Seasonable at any time. Note: this pudding may also be baked, and will be found very good. It will take about 2 hours. Plain Lemon Pudding. $12.99. Ingredients: 3/4 pound of flour, 6 ounces of lard or dripping, the juice of 1 large lemon, 1 teaspoonful of flour, sugar. Mode: make the above proportions of flour and lard into a smooth paste, and roll it out to the thickness of about 1/2 inch. Squeeze the lemon juice, strain it into a cup, stir the flour into it, and as much moist sugar as will make it into a stiff and thick paste. Spread this mixture over the paste, roll it up, secure the ends, and tie the pudding in a floured cloth. Boil for 2 hours. Time, 2 hours. Average cost, 7d. Sufficient for 5 or 6 persons. Seasonable at any time. Manchester Pudding, to eat cold. 1300. Ingredients: 3 ounces of grated bread, 1/2 pint of milk, a strip of lemon peel, 4 eggs, 2 ounces of butter, sugar to taste, puff paste, jam, 3 tablespoonfuls of brandy. Mode: flavor the milk with lemon peel by infusing it in the milk for 1/2 hour. Then strain it on to the bread crumbs, and boil it for 2 or 3 minutes. Add the eggs, leaving out the whites of 2, the butter, sugar, and brandy. Stir all these ingredients well together, cover a pie dish with puff paste, and at the bottom put a thick layer of any kind of jam. Pour the above mixture, cold, on the jam, and bake the pudding for an hour. Serve cold with a little sifted sugar sprinkled over. Time, 1 hour. Average cost, 1s. Sufficient for 5 or 6 persons. Seasonable at any time. Sweet Macaroni Pudding. 1301. Ingredients: 2 1/2 ounces of macaroni, 2 pints of milk, the rind of 1/2 lemon, 3 eggs, sugar and grated nutmeg to taste, 2 tablespoonfuls of brandy. Mode: put the macaroni with a pint of the milk into a saucepan with the lemon peel, and let it simmer gently until the macaroni is tender. Then put it into a pie dish without the peel. Mix the other pint of milk with the eggs, stir these well together, adding the sugar and brandy, and pour the mixture over the macaroni. Grate a little nutmeg over the top, and bake in a moderate oven for 1/2 hour. To make this pudding look nice, a paste should be laid around the edges of the dish, and, for variety, a layer of preserve or marmalade may be placed on the macaroni. In this case omit the brandy. Time, 3/4 hour to simmer the macaroni, 1/2 hour to bake the pudding. Average cost, 11d. Sufficient for 5 or 6 persons. Seasonable at any time. Macaroni is composed of wheaten flour, flavored with other articles, and worked up with water into a paste, to which, by a peculiar process, a tubular or pipe form is given, in order that it may cook more readily in hot water. That of smaller diameter than macaroni, which is about the thickness of a goose quill, is called vermicelli, and when smaller still, fettuccine. The finest is made from the flour of the hard-grained Black Sea wheat. Macaroni is the principal article of food in many parts of Italy, particularly Naples, where the best is manufactured, and from whence, also, it is exported in considerable quantities. In this country, macaroni and vermicelli are frequently used in soups. Manna Croup Pudding. 1302. Ingredients: 3 tablespoonfuls of manna croup, 2 bitter almonds, 1 pint of milk, sugar to taste, 3 eggs. Mode: blanch and pound the almonds in a mortar. Mix them with the manna croup. Pour over these a pint of boiling milk, and let them steep for about 1/4 hour. When nearly cold, add sugar and the well-beaten eggs. Mix all well together. Put the pudding into a buttered dish, and bake for 1/2 hour. Time, 1/2 hour. Sufficient for 4 or 5 persons. Seasonable at any time. Manna croup, semora, or semolina are three names given to a flour made from ground wheat and rice. The preparation is white when it is made only of these materials. The yellow color which it usually has is produced by a portion of saffron and yolks of eggs. Next to vermicelli, this preparation is the most useful for thickening either meat or vegetable soups. As a food, it is light, nutritious, wholesome, and easily digested. The best preparation is brought from Arabia, and next to that, from Italy. Mansfield pudding, 1303. Ingredients: the crumb of 2 rolls, 1 pint of milk, sugar to taste, 4 eggs, 2 tablespoonfuls of brandy, 6 ounces of chopped suet, 2 tablespoonfuls of flour, 1/2 pound of currants, 1/2 teaspoonful of grated nutmeg, 2 tablespoonfuls of cream. Mode: slice the roll very thin, and pour upon it a pint of boiling milk. Let it remain covered close for 1/2 hour, then beat it up with a fork, and sweeten with moist sugar. Stir in the chopped suet, flour, currants, and nutmeg. Mix these ingredients well together, moisten with the eggs, brandy, and cream, beat the mixture for 2 or 3 minutes, put it into a buttered dish or mould, and bake in a moderate oven for 1 1/4 hour. Turn it out, strew sifted sugar over, and serve. Time. 1 1/4 hour. Average cost, 1s. 3d. Sufficient for 6 or 7 persons. Seasonable at any time. Marlborough pudding, 1304. Ingredients: 1/4 pound of butter, 1/4 pound of powdered lump sugar, 4 eggs, puff paste, a layer of any kind of jam. Mode: beat the butter to a cream, stir in the powdered sugar, whisk the eggs, and add these to the other ingredients. When these are well mixed, line a dish with puff paste. Spread over a layer of any kind of jam that may be preferred, pour in the mixture, and bake the pudding for rather more than 1/2 hour. Time. Rather more than 1/2 hour. Average cost, 1s. Sufficient for 5 or 6 persons. Seasonable at any time. Marmalade and vermicelli pudding, 1305. Ingredients: 1 breakfast cupful of vermicelli, 2 tablespoonfuls of marmalade, 1/4 pound of raisins, sugar to taste, 3 eggs, milk. Mode: pour some boiling milk on the vermicelli and let it remain covered for 10 minutes. Then mix with it the marmalade, stoned raisins, sugar, and beaten eggs. Stir all well together, put the mixture into a buttered mould, boil for 1 1/2 hour, and serve with custard sauce. Time. 1 1/2 hour. Average cost, 1s. Sufficient for 5 or 6 persons. Seasonable at any time. Marrow dumplings, to serve with roast meat, in soup, with salad, etc. German recipe. 1306. Ingredients: 1 ounce of beef marrow, 1 ounce of butter, 2 eggs, 2 penny rolls, 1 teaspoonful of minced onion, 1 teaspoonful of minced parsley, salt, and grated nutmeg to taste. Mode: beat the marrow and butter together to a cream. Well whisk the eggs, and add these to the other ingredients. When they are well stirred, put in the rolls, which should previously be well soaked in boiling milk, strained, and beaten up with a fork. Add the remaining ingredients, omitting the minced onion where the flavour is very much disliked, and form the mixture into small round dumplings. Drop these into boiling broth, and let them simmer for about 20 minutes or 1/2 hour. They may be served in soup, with roast meat, or with salad, as in Germany, where they are more frequently sent to table than in this country. They are very good. Time. 20 minutes to 1/2 hour. Average cost, 6d. Sufficient for 7 or 8 dumplings. Seasonable at any time. Baked or boiled marrow pudding, 1307. Ingredients: 1/2 pint of breadcrumbs, 1 1/2 pint of milk, 6 ounces of marrow, 4 eggs, 1/4 pound of raisins or currants, or 2 ounces of each, sugar and grated nutmeg to taste. Mode: make the milk boiling, Pour it hot onto the breadcrumbs and let these remain covered for about 1/2 hour. Shred the marrow, beat up the eggs, and mix these with the breadcrumbs. Add the remaining ingredients, beat the mixture well, and either put it into a buttered mold and boil it for 2 1/2 hours, or put it into a pie dish edged with puff paste, and bake for rather more than 3/4 an hour. Before sending it to table, sift a little pounded sugar over, after being turned out of the mold or basin. Time. 2 1/2 hours to boil, 3/4 an hour to bake. Average cost, 1s. 2d. Sufficient for 5 or 6 persons. Seasonable at any time. Military puddings. 1308. INGREDIENTS. 1/2 pound of suet, 1/2 pound of breadcrumbs, 1/2 pound of moist sugar, the rind and juice of 1 large lemon. Mode. Chop the suet finely, mix it with the breadcrumbs and sugar, and mince the lemon rind and strain the juice. Stir these into the other ingredients, mix well, and put the mixture into small buttered cups, and bake for rather more than 1/2 hour. Turn them out on the dish and serve with lemon sauce. The above ingredients may be made into small balls and boiled for about 1/2 hour. They should then be served with the same sauce as when baked. Time. Rather more than 1/2 hour. Average cost, 9d. Sufficient to fill 6 or 7 moderate-sized cups. Seasonable at any time. Mincemeat. 1309. INGREDIENTS. 2 pounds of raisins, 3 pounds of currants, 1 1/2 pound of lean beef, 3 pounds of beef suet, 2 pounds of moist sugar, 2 ounces of citron, 2 ounces of candied lemon peel, 2 ounces of candied orange peel, 1 small nutmeg, 1 pottle of apples, the rind of 2 lemons, the juice of 1, 1/2 pint of brandy. Mode. Stone and cut the raisins once or twice across, but do not chop them. Wash, dry, and pick the currants free from stalks and grit, and mince the beef and suet, taking care that the latter is chopped very fine. Slice the citron and candied peel. Grate the nutmeg, and pare, core, and mince the apples. Mince the lemon peel, strain the juice, and when all the ingredients are thus prepared, mix them well together, adding the brandy when the other things are well blended. Press the whole into a jar, carefully exclude the air, and the mincemeat will be ready for use in a fortnight. Average cost for this quantity, 8s. Seasonable. Make this about the beginning of December. Excellent mincemeat. 1310. INGREDIENTS. 3 large lemons, 3 large apples, 1 pound of stoned raisins, 1 pound of currants, 1 pound of suet, 2 pounds of moist sugar, 1 ounce of sliced candied citron, 1 ounce of sliced candied orange peel, and the same quantity of lemon peel, 1 teacupful of brandy, 2 tablespoonfuls of orange marmalade. Mode. Grate the rinds of the lemons, squeeze out the juice, strain it, and boil the remainder of the lemons until tender enough to pulp or chop very finely. Then add to this pulp the apples, which should be baked, and their skins and cores removed. Put in the remaining ingredients one by one, and as they are added, mix everything very thoroughly together. Put the mincemeat into a stone jar with a closely fitting lid, and in a fortnight it will be ready for use. Seasonable. This should be made the first or second week in December. Mince pies. 1311. INGREDIENTs. Good puff paste No. 1205, mincemeat No. 1309. Mode. Make some good puff paste by recipe No. 1205. Roll it out to the thickness of about 1/4 inch, and line some good-sized patty pans with it. Fill them with mincemeat, cover with the paste, and cut it off all round close to the edge of the tin. Put the pies into a brisk oven to draw the paste up, and bake for 25 minutes or longer should the pies be very large. Brush them over with the white of an egg, beaten with the blade of a knife to a stiff froth. Sprinkle over pounded sugar, and put them into the oven for a minute or two to dry the egg. Dish the pies on white d'oyley and serve hot. They may be merely sprinkled with pounded sugar instead of being glazed, when that mode is preferred. To rewarm them, put the pies on the patty pans and let them remain in the oven for 10 minutes or 1/4 hour, and they will be almost as good as if freshly made. Time, 25 to 30 minutes, 10 minutes to rewarm them. Average cost, 4d. each. Sufficient, 1/2 pound of paste for 4 pies. Seasonable at Christmas time. Monday's pudding. 1312. Ingredients: the remains of cold plum pudding, brandy, custard made with 5 eggs to every pint of milk. Mode. Cut the remains of a good cold plum pudding into finger pieces, soak them in a little brandy, and lay them cross-barred in a mould until full. Make a custard with the above proportion of milk and eggs, flavouring it with nutmeg or lemon rind. Fill up the mould with it, tie it down with a cloth, and boil or steam it for an hour. Serve with a little of the custard poured over, to which has been added a tablespoonful of brandy. Time, 1 hour. Average cost, exclusive of the pudding, 6d. Sufficient for 5 or 6 persons. Seasonable at any time. Nesselrode pudding. A fashionable iced pudding. Carême's recipe. 1313. Ingredients: 40 chestnuts, 1 pound of sugar, flavouring of vanilla, 1 pint of cream, the yolks of 12 eggs, 1 glass of maraschino, 1 ounce of candied citron, 2 ounces of currants, 2 ounces of stoned raisins, 1/2 pint of whipped cream, 3 eggs. Mode. Blanch the chestnuts in boiling water, remove the husks, and pound them in a mortar until perfectly smooth, adding a few spoonfuls of syrup. Then rub them through a fine sieve, and mix them in a basin with a pint of syrup made from 1 pound of sugar, clarified, and flavoured with vanilla, 1 pint of cream, and the yolks of 12 eggs. Set this mixture over a slow fire, stirring it without ceasing, and just as it begins to boil, take it off and pass it through a tammy. When it is cold, put it into a freezing pot, adding the maraschino, and make the mixture set. Then add the sliced citron, the currants, and stoned raisins. These 2 latter should be soaked the day previously in maraschino and sugar pounded with vanilla. The whole thus mingled, add a plateful of whipped cream mixed with the whites of 3 eggs, beaten to a froth with a little syrup. When the pudding is perfectly frozen, put it into a pineapple-shaped mould, close the lid, place it again in the freezing pan, cover it over with pounded ice and saltpetre, and let it remain until required for table, then turn the pudding out and serve. Time, 1/2 hour to freeze the mixture. Seasonable from October to February. Baked orange pudding. 1314. Ingredients: 6 ounces of stale sponge cake or bruised ratafias, 6 oranges, 1 pint of milk, 6 eggs, 1/2 pound of sugar. Mode. Bruise the sponge cake or ratafias into fine crumbs, and pour upon them the milk, which should be boiling. Rub the rinds of 2 of the oranges on sugar, and add this, with the juice of the remainder, to the other ingredients. Beat up the eggs, stir them in, sweeten to taste, and put the mixture into a pie dish previously lined with puff paste. Bake for rather more than 1/2 hour, turn it out of the dish, strew sifted sugar over, and serve. Time. Rather more than 1 hour. Average cost, 1s. 6d. Sufficient for 3 or 4 persons. Seasonable from November to May. Orange, Citrus aurantium. The principal varieties are the sweet or China orange and the bitter or Seville orange. The Maltese is also worthy of notice, from its red blood-like pulp. The orange is extensively cultivated in the south of Europe and in Devonshire, on walls with a south aspect. It bears an abundance of fruit. So great is the increase in the demand for the orange, and so ample the supply, that it promises to rival the apple in its popularity. The orange tree is considered young at the age of 100 years. The pulp of the orange consists of a collection of oblong vesicles filled with a sugary and refreshing juice. The orange blossom is proverbially chosen for the bridal wreath, and, from the same flower, an essential oil is extracted hardly less esteemed than for the celebrated ottar of roses. Of all marmalades, that made from the Seville orange is the best. The peel and juice of the orange are much used in culinary preparations. From oranges are made preserves, confitures, jellies, glacés, sherbet, liqueurs, and syrups. The juice of the orange in a glass d'eau sucrée makes a refreshing and wholesome drink. From the clarified pulp of the orange the French make a delicious jelly, which they serve in small pots, and call crème. The rasped peel of the orange is used in several sweet entremets to which it communicates its perfume. The confectioner manufactures a variety of dainties from all parts of the orange. Confections of orange peel are excellent tonics and stomachics. Persons with delicate stomachs should abstain from oranges at dessert, because their acidity is likely to derange the digestive organs. Small dishes of pastry for entremets, supper dishes, etc. Fanchonettes or custard tartlets. 1315. INGREDIENTS. For the custard, 4 eggs, 3/4 pint of milk, 2 ounces of butter, 2 ounces of pounded sugar, 3 dessertspoonfuls of flour, flavoring to taste, the whites of 2 eggs, 2 ounces of pounded sugar. Mode. Well beat the eggs. Stir to them the milk, the butter, which should be beaten to a cream, the sugar and flour. Mix these ingredients well together, put them into a very clean saucepan, and bring them to the simmering point, but do not allow them to boil. Flavor with essence of vanilla, bitter almonds, lemon, grated chocolate, or any flavoring ingredient that may be preferred. Line some round tartlet pans with good puff paste. Fill them with the custard and bake in a moderate oven for about 20 minutes. Then take them out of the pans. Let them cool, and in the meantime whisk the whites of the eggs to a stiff froth. Stir into this the pounded sugar, and spread smoothly over the tartlets a little of this mixture. Put them in the oven again to set the icing, but be particular that they do not scorch. When the icing looks crisp, they are done. Arrange them, piled high in the centre, on a white napkin, and garnish the dish, and in between the tartlets, with strips of bright jelly or very firmly made preserve. Time. 20 minutes to bake the tartlets, 5 minutes after being iced. Average cost, exclusive of the paste, 1s. Sufficient to fill 10 or 12 tartlets. Seasonable at any time. Note. The icing may be omitted on the top of the tartlets, and a spoonful of any kind of preserve put at the bottom of the custard instead. This varies both the flavour and appearance of this dish. Almond flowers. 1316. INGREDIENTS. Puff paste No. 1205. To every 1/2 pound of paste allow 3 ounces of almonds, sifted sugar, the white of an egg. Mode. Roll the paste out to the thickness of 1/4 inch, and with a round fluted cutter, stamp out as many pieces as may be required. Work the paste up again, roll it out, and with a smaller cutter, stamp out some pieces the size of a shilling. Brush the larger pieces over with the white of an egg, and place one of the smaller pieces on each. Blanch and cut the almonds into strips lengthwise, press them slanting into the paste closely round the rings, and when they are all completed, sift over some pounded sugar, and bake for about 1/4 hour or 20 minutes. Garnish between the almonds with strips of apple jelly, and place in the centre of the ring a small quantity of strawberry jam. Pile them high on the dish, and serve. Time. 1/4 hour or 20 minutes. Sufficient. 18 or 20 for a dish. Seasonable at any time. Fluted rolls. 1317. INGREDIENTS. Puff paste, the white of an egg, sifted sugar, jelly, or preserve. Mode. Make some good puff paste by recipe No. 1205. Trimmings answer very well for little dishes of this sort. Roll it out to the thickness of 1/4 inch, and with a round fluted paste cutter, stamp out as many round pieces as may be required. Brush over the upper side with the white of an egg, roll up the pieces, pressing the paste lightly together where it joins, place the rolls on a baking sheet, and bake for about 1/4 hour. A few minutes before they are done, brush them over with the white of an egg, strew over sifted sugar, put them back in the oven, and when the icing is firm and of a pale brown colour, they are done. Place a strip of jelly or preserve across each roll, dish them high on a napkin, and serve cold. Time. 1/4 hour before being iced, 5 to 10 minutes after. Average cost, 1s. 3d. Sufficient, 1/2 pound of puff paste for 2 dishes. Seasonable at any time. End of Section 62. Recording by Leanne Howlett.